evening, it's Thursday, February 18th, 2016. I'm your host, Kat Galliano, and welcome to the Local Live. The 40 Ocean Avenue developers have appealed Larchmont's demolition moratorium. Coming up next, the Community Resource Center launches a new text messaging program. More details tonight. An exciting new business is coming to Mamaroneck. Find out more on this story and others with raw biases in the media. And coming up on our roundtable discussion, we'll have a team of Mamaroneck High School students in studio to discuss their once-in-a-lifetime experience at the New Hampshire Primary. The Mamaroneck Tigers men's hockey team rocked our LMC-TV Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is the Local Live.
Back in January, we began reporting on the demolition of a historical house located at 40 Ocean Avenue in Larchmont. This 120-year-old home was purchased by KOSL Building Group for $4.7 million with the intent to subdivide this property into 4 new homes. The new plans for 40 Ocean Avenue brought local residents and groups like the Larchmont Historical Society and Larchmont Preserve to bring their concerns to the Board of Trustees. The collective opposition led to the passing of a moratorium law stating that no entity shall review, except for review, hold a hearing, or make a decision regarding subdivision, plan approval, and/or demolition permits. Now, after almost a month, the developers of 40 Ocean Avenue have appealed the moratorium law and had requested a hearing on a waiver application at yesterday's Village of Larchmont municipal meeting. They argue that prior to buying the property, no impediments existed to the demolition of the existing house.
The moratorium law contains this appeal provision under which we're seeking the waiver. Up until December 7th, when the project applications were filed, the applicant expended significant time and financial resources to design the project in conformance with the code and to ensure that his investment in the community was consistent and appropriate. The applicant would not have moved forward with the plans for his project or the purchase of the property if the village had made any indication that it was seeking to halt development through adoption of the moratorium. Indeed, there was no indication that the moratorium was being considered until after the applicant submitted his applications for the project. With respect to the project, we note that the project is fully conforming with the zoning code requirements. We demonstrated that it's consistent with the character of the neighborhood. We indicated that 54% of the parcels in the neighborhood are non-conforming right now with respect to lot size. So if the purpose of the moratorium is to prevent further subdivision and upsize this area, then if you're requiring larger minimum lot sizes, you will render the entire neighborhood non-conforming. And that is simply not the way to plan for a village.
No decisions were made at this hearing regarding granting a waiver to the 40 Ocean Avenue developers, but the full meeting is available online at www.lmctv.org. The Village of Larchmont has not decided to change any current zoning laws. However, some residents like Stacy Caffrey from Preserve Larchmont wonder if there is a case for limiting development to prevent other overstressing community services.
Hold it straight. So
the area that's colored in yellow is the part that I did. It encompasses, I think, 337 homes. All I did was take the size of the lot and what it's zoned for in terms of how many houses they could put there. And in this area of 337 homes alone, just this tiny little chunk of our town, our village, you could add another 41 under our current zoning laws. 41. It's 12.2% increase. It's a humongous number. It's a dire, dire problem. So in terms of revisiting the zoning laws, we need to figure out, is this the right size lots? Do we need, part of it is just the actual zoning. Zoning in Larchmont is based upon lot size, how many homes you can have on it. But do we also need to look at setbacks? Do we need to look at other things that constrain how much house we can put per land? Because we are at capacity, I believe, in terms of what our sewers can handle, what our water runoff issues, environmental issues, not to mention our schools. We just can't fit any more children.
Last Friday, the Community Resource Center of Larchmont Mamaroneck launched the CRC Text Initiative. CRC Executive Director Milan Bott told us more about this innovative program.
Good afternoon. My name is Milan Bott, Executive Director of the Community Resource Center, and we're thrilled to be able to share with you that we are launching today a brand new cutting-edge information network, and it's all in the palm of your hands. As of today, you will be able to learn really important information about events in the community, about CRC programs, about all sorts of actions and workshops that we have, for instance, on immigration reform, the latest legal updates, and anything that we think is really important for you and your families to be able to learn about the resources that exist and actions that you need to take to defend your rights. To be able to add the network, to join the network, simply text the word @Power1. Again, that's @Power1 to the numbers 23559. Or for our Spanish network, text @Poder1. Again, @Poder1 to 23559. We hope you'll join us. Thank you.
In other news from the CRC, for the first time they are offering a free programming class teaching the Python language. CRC Director of Programs Duarte Martinez explained that the purpose of this program is to empower the parents of our community. He said, quote, they will be able to learn a new technology career and that could lead them to a new job opportunity. There are only 10 spots left in the class, so hurry up and register. This is a bilingual class targeted at adults with basic computer skills. If you want to register, make sure to go in person next week. The address is 134 Center Avenue, right here in Mamaroneck. For more information on this and other CRC classes offered to the public, you can visit their website at www.crcny.org. Now here's Rob Bias to brief us on the stories trending in our local media this week.
Congratulations to the Homix Middle School Robotics team. They earned first place in the Write Again project, a project in which teams make robots out of old and used pencils. This all happened at the Hudson Valley First LEGO Robotics Competition in LaGrangeville. This story is from the Mamaroneck Daily Voice. Mamaroneck native Anima Banks set a Duke University record in track and field. The senior finished second overall in 800 meters, but she broke the previous Duke 800-meter record by finishing with a time of 2:03.41. To read more on this story, either head to thepatch.com or go straight to goduke.com. LOHUD reported that a body was found behind the St. John and Paul Parish in Larchmont on Sunday morning. The body was identified as 85-year-old Henry Malgran. According to authorities, he died of skull fractures and hypothermia. No foul play was suspected. A Port Chester resident is looking to turn his longtime hobby into a business. Vincent Miata is planning on opening a distillery right here in Mamaroneck, where he'll offer tours and tastings, as well as a retail area. Check this story out on the Mamaroneck Daily Voice. You can also go to the website goodshepherdistillery.com. Now, some say diamonds are forever. While that may be true for some, all 100-year-old Mila Zavodny needs is her New York Rangers. On February 16th, Zavodny celebrated her 100th birthday by going to a live New York Rangers practice at their training facility in Greenburgh. She was even greeted by some of the players. And she had some interesting descriptions of what she saw. According to Zavodny, the players are, quote, so tall and majestic and they glide across the ice like ballerinas. Go to lohud.com for more details. In national news, the longest-running Supreme Court Justice Antonin Scalia passed away on Saturday at the age of 79. According to CNN, he was at a luxury ranch in West Texas at the time of his passing. His vacancy on the bench will prove to be a vital topic in this year's presidential race. That's it for this week. I am Rob Bias, signing off.
Up next, we have our local trivia question. And don't go anywhere because we'll be joined by Mamaroneck High School's team of reporters and campaigners, fresh from New Hampshire Primary. They'll discuss their experiences and answer your questions in our roundtable discussion.
Well, the political focus is right now on South Carolina, but not too long ago, the primary in New Hampshire was all in the news, and 115 Mamaroneck High School students were there to get all the political action and to experience it firsthand. And Maura and I are here with one of their teacher leaders, as well as 5 of the journalists and campaigners, and they're going to give us a report about what happened. And Maura, people can call in their questions.
As always, we're waiting to hear from you. You can call, email, or tweet. The information's on your screen. So let's hear from you, and they'd like to hear from you.
Yes, we shouldn't be the only ones asking questions. Well, let me introduce, first of all, Mr. Joe Liberti. You are the social studies teacher.
That is correct. So I'm Joe Liberti. I teach AP U.S. Government and Politics at Mamaroneck High School, and I think this is probably my 8th year teaching the course.
And you were one of 3 teachers that went up there.
Actually, there was more than 3. I think there was probably 7 in total, but I was the lead teacher, the director, the orchestrator of the whole trip.
And you had done this once before, back in 2012.
Correct. First time was in 2012 with about 67 students, so a smaller group compared to this one.
And I believe he's being modest because it was his brainchild, according to one of his colleagues.
Yes.
Well, we'll get into that. Sitting next to you, Wesley, can you introduce yourself, and what exactly did you do in New Hampshire?
Yeah, I'm Wesley Duarte, and I volunteered for Bernie Sanders up in New Hampshire. Included knocking on doors and getting people to get out their vote for the primary.
Did you meet him?
Yes, I did. Though
And
I couldn't snap
your
his
first impression?
Well, he's quite the character.
Yeah?
I'll give him that. It was a pleasure to meet him.
Good. Well, maybe we can talk more about your impressions later on in the show. And next to you, Stephen?
Yeah, I'm Stephen Rome, and I was a part of the journalist team, and I was covering Ted Cruz in New Hampshire.
And did you get to meet him?
I mean, not personally. We were in the same room a couple times. I was covering a couple of his events, but I personally didn't get to meet him.
Okay. Eli, did you meet anybody famous?
I did. Well, I'm Eli Lederman. I was one of the editors for the journalism team, and I met, most notably, I guess, President Clinton, Bill Clinton, when Hillary was in Flint.
Only Bill Clinton? He's the only one you met?
No, I met a few others as well. Bernie Sanders and Marco Rubio were the other
Good.
two.
As the editor, well, let's not talk about that quite yet. Let's go up to
Gabe.
Hey, Gabe.
Yeah, I was also a reporter. I was covering Donald Trump for the primaries.
And my question, did you get to meet him?
I did not get to meet Donald Trump. I saw a few of his speeches, but I didn't get to meet him personally.
Okay. And last but not least,
I'm Jimmy Quinn. So I was a journalist following around Hillary Clinton. I did get to meet her twice, and I also sort of followed John Kasich. I went to one of his events.
okay. So was it what you expected to happen, or was it something, did it just blow your mind? Anybody want to answer that question?
Well, yeah, it was mind-blowing.
Jimmy.
I mean, because here in New York, like, we don't really get access to all of these people. When you go up to New Hampshire, all the political activity is concentrated in Manchester, Concord, maybe a couple of other towns. But you are able to just go up to any candidate, talk to them, and any of their surrogates. You have all of these senators, all of these other public officials coming up to make speeches and make the case for their, campaign. So it was just an amazing experience, nothing like I've ever seen before.
And you guys posted, the writers, the journalists among you, posted your reports on media.com. And I think we have Jimmy's. Can we find Jimmy's?
We can certainly find
Because one of
Jimmy's.
the things you said in your post was that those candidates are just like us.
And we have
And-
pulled up Jimmy's article.
And folks, you can see it on your screen in a second. And did you find the candidates accessible and?
Yeah, they were friendly. I mean, they're just normal people. You just go up to them, say, hey, that was a great speech, or, you can ask them a question. Honestly, it was such an amazing experience.
And your posts are still up now, right?
They
All
are.
of the posts?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell
Okay.
everyone where people can find them? Because it was a little hard to find if you didn't have the right codes.
Sure.
Good idea. Joe?
So for the journalism team, they were posting all their articles on medium.com. So if you just go to medium.com and then type in a search for New Hamp 2016.
You have to put
I
hyphens?
think underscore maybe.
Right. But so New Hamp _ 2016.
Yeah.
It'll pull up their specific site, and then you'll see all the articles listed chronologically when they're posted.
And how long will they be available?
Forever. We plan on keeping this up and maybe trying to build on it at some point in the future.
Good. Wesley, tell me about the experience of campaigning.
Of course. It was challenging, especially since it was the first time I've ever campaigned for a particular candidate. But at the same time, it was very interesting to see just exactly how one person has the power to affect the whole entire political process, simply just by knocking on doors and telling people and getting out their vote.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that you did succeed in getting somebody who might not plan to vote?
Yeah,
to vote?
We knocked on a couple of doors, and some people didn't even know where to vote. Some people didn't know even who the candidates were, so I felt as if not just myself, but the group of students who volunteered, we were very effective in our efforts.
How many people would knock on a door? Just a couple or a crowd?
Well, it would be a group of 3 to 4, and 1 or 2 people would knock on the door and they would speak.
Right, and you had to give them a fast pitch for your candidate?
Yeah, we would just ask them questions like, who are you voting for? Are you going to vote in the primary? And we'll tell them to try to get out the vote for a particular candidate.
And what was the big promise for Bernie Sanders?
The big promise for Bernie, well, there are a lot of big promises for Bernie Sanders, but
ding dong, somebody answers the door and you're there and you tell them I gotta
we just
vote.
say, this country's in trouble. We need someone to help turn this country around and maybe help build the economy again, help create a newer, better system, and hopefully keep this country moving forward.
And building the economy and moving the system forward was one of the issues that was foremost in that campaign, right? Were there other issues that you guys identified? And I say guys, but there were plenty of girls on this trip.
Yes, this is not a boys' club.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we identified also. This is a big one, especially for us high school students, that Bernie wants a free public college. So that's a pretty big one. Because, there are many people, including some of my coworkers, who live in debt. And that's not how anybody would like to live, especially not myself, But given that we're all seniors in high school and we're very anxious to go into college, free college sounds like a pretty good deal because, my family, I don't think many people will be able to afford $45,000 each year of college education.
Okay. Was there another campaign issue that you identified?
I noticed campaign finance reform. Obviously, that's the center of Bernie Sanders' campaign. But all over New Hampshire, there were a lot of people outside of either speeches or outside of the Radisson where all the media members were. A lot of the protests and kind of meetings, I guess, were about campaign finance reform.
Tell me what an editor does as opposed to somebody who's in an event and taking notes. As a reporter, is that a fair comparison?
As an editor, I still was going to events, and I would write a story each night, so I was taking notes there. But really the difference was when we would get back to the hotel after a day out, and I'd be trying to write something and then having 3 articles thrown at me and sort of having to balance that. But just working with people to get them to tell the right story and add some heart to the piece, I guess.
And what is the right story? The truth, or what you think is the right story for that day?
It would depend on sort of what they were bringing me. Some of the pieces were very specific, and it was about sort of honing that in, and others, some were more opinion-based, and it was about finding the right way to deliver that message.
Did anybody write anything that you never expected to write? Something that was out of the blue?
Yeah.
Stephen?
I had the privilege of going to the spin room, which is where all of the media watches the debate. So there's a Republican debate on Saturday night. We arrived Saturday, so that night, and it was in this hockey rink at
And I think we have
pull it up on the screen.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was really incredible to be able to go there. So, I saw Bob Schieffer, who was with CBS. He was sitting, a few rows behind me. Like all of the real journalists were there. And then after watching the debate, and taking notes as if we were, writing a story, some of the candidates walked in after, and all of the media was there. And we had the opportunity to at least try to ask them questions. Sometimes they kind of ignored us, but...
How did it feel to be among the mainstream media?
It was really incredible just watching them, how they function, and I guess for everyone else it seemed like this is totally normal and this is just kind of what they do, but obviously we're a little bit starstruck. But at the same time we also, had stories to get out, and I think the biggest takeaway from the trip for me is, having the confidence to walk up to people, even if it was, a former senator who was a surrogate for one of the candidates, and asking them questions, and having the confidence to approach people you know, and feel like you belonged there. You know, so there wasn't really time to just kind of stand in the background and, you know, be starstruck.
Yeah.
Can I ask a media question?
Absolutely.
As a journalist, you know, there are so many platforms nowadays. What do you think is the most effective platform for reporting and for the candidates?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, there's so many different things, and that was another takeaway for me, you know, because we were tweeting and we were putting up stuff on Instagram and Medium, you know, so it kind of depends, and all of their campaigns are doing the same thing, so there's just so much. And I guess I don't really know what people are consuming the most, but I mean, personally for me, I still prefer writing longer form pieces. I mean, I never
That's
really
actually
tweeted
shocking
before.
to hear
Yeah.
from your generation.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
Yeah. So I do prefer writing like longer pieces, you know, and I guess putting a little more thought into it. But at the same time, everything is so fast-paced that you do need to constantly push out content. And if you don't do it right away, then someone's going to do it before you. So
And how much did you use your phones?
all the time,
Yeah.
pretty much. Yeah.
You got photos for their phones and
Yeah.
sound bites as well?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
We have several pictures that we can go to. Maybe, Joe, you can, I think the first picture we're going to see is the getting on the bus as you arrived, as you got there. So you chartered these buses, and did the school pay for all of this, or did individual students pay? Or
It was a combination. For the most part, individual students paid for it. So in putting the trip together, I started really sort of the detailed planning right after the July 4th weekend. So looking into transportation, food, hotel rooms, and then other sort of expenses that I knew we would incur, you know, based on 2012, and then dividing that over what I thought would be my student numbers, and then any additional money we needed to raise to cover scholarships, either half scholarships, full scholarships, came from the PTSA. The parents themselves donated back. So in the end, it was really a combination of both students paying and then any additional money we needed to raise coming from the community. And that's what's really, that's really spectacular about this type of experience, is that these experiences would not happen if it wasn't for, you know, that really sort of supportive community. And so it was really just a question of sort of, you know, going through the steps of the planning. And then eventually on Saturday morning, you know, February 6th, the buses rolled out early in the morning. Actually, Evan Madden and myself were already up there laying some groundwork, but the students arrived Saturday afternoon.
and Evan is the journalism teacher.
Correct. And so, so we worked on the journalism team together, you know, for quite a while, and then eventually I needed to step back to sort of direct the overall trip. And then Evan, with some additional support from Margaret Groniger, and then Jesse Dancy came on to do some tech support, worked with the students, you know, while they were up there.
Did you set up which candidates would be available for the students, or who they would work for? Or
The students were allowed to pick any candidate they wanted. The only difficulty that I had was I had some very small numbers for a couple of Republican candidates. So I had like 2 students who wanted to volunteer for Jeb Bush. I had like 2 or 3 who wanted to volunteer for Chris Christie. And then I had, you know, 18 roughly who wanted to volunteer for Rubio. So I did ask those students to come over if they were willing to volunteer for Rubio. But I tried to basically stay true to their requests, because I thought it was important that they would bring the passion to their volunteer work, because it's not easy.
Do you know whether, and I guess I should ask you guys, were you volunteering for candidates that you supported, or those that you wanted to learn more about, or those who you had some other feeling about?
I volunteered for Bernie. I liked him, and I did want to learn more about him. I felt like it was appropriate, you know, to volunteer for Bernie Sanders. It was a big thing, so I felt like I learned a lot about him during my time up in New Hampshire.
Jimmy, you were with Rubio, is that right?
No, I was following Clinton.
You were following
and I saw
Clinton.
Kasich too.
But did you write about Rubio? Was that?
No, I didn't write
okay.
about Rubio.
Go ahead.
As one of the editors, it was interesting, I guess. You'd look at who was more interesting to cover rather than who you were interested in.
Yeah.
So that encompassed Donald Trump. Before we got there, Ben Carson, he sort of tapered off. And then Bernie Sanders, who has gained relevance, was interesting to look at as well.
Did you find one candidate, for instance, Trump was more colorful of or the most colorful of the bunch?
I actually didn't see him in person. You could talk to Gabe about that, but Bernie Sanders was pretty impressive relative to Hillary Clinton, I'd say.
Gabe, do you think that sort of dictates how many stories get written about a candidate?
I think speaking about Trump, he sort of lends himself very well to like the type of media that goes on now. You know, very few people are going to watch an entire speech. They're going to want to watch like the 20 seconds that gets put on the evening news. So Donald Trump has great 20-second bits. What I actually found while watching the entirety of his speeches is that, you know, he sort of loses the audience for when he speaks for long stretches of time. Whereas someone else I saw, Chris Christie, speak also, he actually spoke much better and was able to hold the audience better, but it's really, Trump has those small bits that really draw people in.
Did you happen to notice whether Trump or Christie got more airtime?
I think Trump definitely got more airtime.
Yeah. Is there a lesson in this for all of us?
I think the lesson is you want to tailor your message to what sounds the best in 10 seconds.
All right, and what about us as voters?
As voters, I mean, I think it's also just you can't rely on one source of news when you're making your political decisions. You have to definitely even look across party lines or ideological lines at places you may disagree with as well as agree with to try to find the entire story, sort of from the candidate's perspective and from the opposing perspective.
Did it at all make you question the source that you get the news from? Because I think, I must have read something one of you wrote about, just by picking the story, you're making an editorial decision. So does it make you question the source? Go ahead.
No.
Looking at you.
Well, I guess you just have to go into it with sort of a critical lens and be a little skeptical of what you're reading and not just say, I saw one thing for 10 seconds on CNN. To really make an informed decision, you have to dig deeper, look at a few different sources like Gabe mentioned, and I guess at that point you can round out your views.
Well, we actually have a question that was emailed in.
Okay.
So what do you think was the most stressful moment of the primary, and what was your favorite part of this experience? And I guess I want to hear it from all of you.
You know,
Okay, why don't we start with Jimmy?
Yeah, so I'd have to say that the stressful moment actually came each night, and that's not a bad thing. That was when we were back at the hotel and we had to put everything together and sort of get our pieces done. Because personally, like, I haven't had much experience with this type of writing before, just straight reporting the facts. In school, we sort of learn how to take a side and stick with that and sort of make this editorial argument almost. But this was another learning experience, I felt. So it was interesting to learn how to adjust to a new style of writing.
Gabe?
I think, you know, I agree with that, and also to add on, it's like to realize how on the fly everything is. I mean, I was speaking with somebody that was working with Christie, and it's like, Christie, I think the final day before the primary had 4 events, and then when he saw his poll numbers dipping, he scheduled 2 more, and it's like, everything, you know, you have to be willing to go from place to place, you know, just completely ruin what your plans are and everything. Everything's just as it comes.
Okay. Yeah.
Piggybacking on what Jimmy said, it was getting back to the hotel after a jam-packed day of events and hearing speeches and having to sit down and write something. And then as an editor, having all those things sort of presented to you and having to edit that.
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, we were at the entire speech and there's so much stuff you could write about and you kind of have to narrow it down to something really specific. You know, we took notes on the entire speech, we interviewed, you know, a lot of people who were at the event. You know, there's so many different angles and you kind of have to make that quick decision. So that, I guess that was a stressful thing.
Wesley?
In my opinion, I would say the most stressful part was getting up each morning and just realizing that it's going to be a long day, but you get through it, and you know, you just go and do it.
Would you consider doing it for a living?
No.
No. Now, there must have been some stressful moments for you.
Just a couple. I mean, a trip of this size and of this nature, it's incredibly stressful.
Well, you had almost 10% of the student body on a field trip.
Yeah, about a third of the senior class.
Yeah.
There's just so many moving parts, and so it was, you know, as best as I can put together a template to sort of guide, you know, the trip itself. The reality is that there's a fluidity that was mentioned before that is unavoidable, and so every night I'm redoing the schedule for the next day depending on which events are available or not available. Even even Saturday, it wasn't until Saturday afternoon that I knew that Hillary Clinton would be up and leaving the state and going to Flint, Michigan. Bernie Sanders was going to up and leave and go to New York City for SNL. And so that was not, I was not expecting that. The weather, a snowstorm rolled in on Monday. So it's a huge undertaking and a lot of moving parts and very little sleep. But the special moments, I mean, they're just abundant. I mean, watching them work, they're not getting extra credit for this. They're not getting, a specific grade for this. And yet they're putting in hours and hours of work because it's just something that they want to do. Because myself and my colleagues, we've set the table, and it's rich with all these possibilities, and they're just so excited to engage in it. It really is amazing, and it's the same for Wesley and all the other volunteers. I mean, to see them meet Bernie Sanders, who made a special stop at the field office where they were volunteering. It was 36 of my students, plus maybe 20 other volunteers, getting a special, 10-minute visit from Bernie Sanders to say thank you for volunteering, and then 20 minutes later, they're out in a snowstorm door knocking, and they're excited about it. I mean, that tells you, how incredible of an experience this was.
Well, what was it like when the tables or cameras got turned on you?
Yeah, you were the subject.
Because you were the subject of a lot of local news stories.
In fact, we've got some of it online there now. News 12, Pix 11, CBS. I saw you on CBS Evening News.
And becoming part of the story was kind of cool. We didn't know when it was coming, or you didn't know what to expect, but you're at something the whole nation's watching, and you're a part of it. It's pretty cool.
How did they find you, or was that set up?
Yeah, I mean, because I'd done this trip in 2012,
sure,
there was an expectation that I'd do it again and again and again. And so some of the media outlets that had done stories on us in 2012 reached out to me before he reached out to them. And so they wanted to do stories before being left. And even in New Hampshire, again, having done it in 2012, I knew already, and I'd already prepped them. I said over and over, you will become the story eventually. Because when you see 36 students campaigning day after day, it attracts attention. When you see two 17-year-olds in the media filing room at the GOP debate, it attracts attention. And so it's just natural because, I mean, how many stories can you write about the same stump speech? I mean, so there's eventually an interest in 17-year-olds who seem to be incredibly energized about the political process.
And will be the next voters.
You got it.
Everybody here is going to vote?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
And have you changed your view on a candidate that you might support?
Yeah, multiple times.
Just like everyone else.
Yeah. So the first was by necessity. My preferred candidate to start out with was Senator Lindsey Graham from South Carolina. But unfortunately, he was polling at something like 0% most of the time, and he dropped out. So then I sort of switched over to Marco Rubio, who I thought sort of embodied, the best of the conservative movement, and the fact that you could sort of adjust your message to the modern age. And a lot of people think that the Republican Party is the party of their grandfather or something, but he sort of has this message of hope, of optimism. So I was sort of with him for a while, and then I went to New Hampshire, and then I got to sit in on a John Kasich town hall. So I asked him about climate change and what his approach to a carbon tax would be, a revenue neutral carbon tax. He didn't agree with what I was talking about, but just being in the town hall, seeing how people were reacting and experiencing his own message, that was really something. And once again, I shifted my view.
But do you have a feeling as to why he hasn't gained much traction based on what you saw?
Yeah, well, here's the thing. You have to be there to really know why he's doing so well. Like in New Hampshire, the only reason he did well was because he did 106 town halls. He really went there, he went all out, and he engaged with the voters. This is retail politics at its finest. But you go somewhere like South Carolina, for instance, where it's not concentrated in Manchester and Concord, or just two cities, and it's a little harder to engage people. You're looking at, ad buys and going on the radio, and it's harder.
This is the politics these days is very much a media event. Are you looking at the media differently after this experience? I would imagine you are. Anybody want to say how? More critically? Yeah. More media you're looking at?
I mean, I think one thing it just like showed me how grueling of a job it is. You know, like I mean, we drove like on Sunday. I think we went to a Ted Cruz event, so we drove an hour, you know, out to this Mexican restaurant. We got there really early. You know, we sat down and, you know, all the reporters started coming in, and it's a, you know, long event. They hear a speech they've heard over and over again, you know, and then they have to write a story and then drive an hour back and, you know, file something that night maybe, you know, and then they do it all over again. So it is a grueling job, you know, so that was kind of actually having to do it. You kind of realize that firsthand.
Yeah.
There was one interesting story that Hannah, I don't know if it was Hannah Khan or, but she wrote an interesting story which really sort of contrasted with a story that the New York Times had done on the very same event. And so it was, you know, the headline for the New York Times article, it was Bill Clinton just alone, stumping for his wife. And the New York Times article on that event was, you know, Bill takes off the gloves. And we both were at that event, and we discussed that event, and we felt that was not the same.
I'm sorry, was this the Bill Clinton gets it right?
Yes.
The real reason? I'm going to pull that up on the screen for you. Because that was actually something I was going to ask, where you covered it differently.
Yeah, we talked about that event afterwards, and then next day the article came out, and we just didn't feel like that was accurate. We felt that we saw that event more as sort of more of a soft sell on behalf of the President Clinton. More I saw it sort of like, you know, like he was the closer, and we did not agree that it was him taking off the gloves. I mean, Trump takes off the gloves. I didn't see Bill Clinton taking off the gloves in that speech, and yet that was the headline.
Any chance to compare notes with the reporter?
The
Times reporter, I mean.
But I know I met him twice. I know who he is. So maybe if we meet up again, we could have a conversation.
That's great. Last questions?
It's up to you.
Okay. Does anybody want to say something that I didn't ask?
I think just answering your question before about the media, it's like, you know, it just gives you a bigger picture sense watching all the media and the media circus around there. It's like, you know, sort of like the Super Bowl, which was coincidentally going on during the same weekend. It's like a few people care about the Super Bowl, but people care about the commercials and the halftime show and who's singing the national anthem. And it's the same thing. It's like few people care about the politics, but it's, you know, all of the events and getting to meet somebody famous and all of the media that's there. And it gives you like this sense of what politics means to people, even if it's not, you know, even if they don't care about the actual policies or they care about whatever fiscal policy or foreign, you know, issues. It's just sort of what it means to them.
So having seen and been a part of the process, do you think that the American electoral process gives us the best candidates and ultimately the best president?
I mean, I think going in, like, we're kind of skeptical of, like, giving so much influence to New Hampshire, because pretty much going in, it's, you know, like, all you hear about is New Hampshire, and it's, like, this very white state that's kind of rural, and, you know, you don't know why we're giving them so much attention. But I think seeing it, you know, as Jimmy said, it is really retail politics, and it forces people to come in, you know, and talk to voters face to face, and these voters really did seem to care, and they were knowledgeable, you know, and also having it in New Hampshire first, you know, drew a lot of people up from out of state who are coming in, trying to influence the process there. So I think having the New Hampshire primary first actually, you know, my faith was kind of restored, because going in I was a little bit skeptical, but I really think the people up there care, and they're very knowledgeable. So although it's kind of messy, I do think it ended up being
Now, chronologically, Iowa's first, but
well, as a primary.
Yeah.
Iowa's a caucus.
Right.
But I think it's important to remember that Iowa picks corn and New Hampshire picks presidents.
That's what they were telling you in New Hampshire.
That's why I don't go to Iowa.
there is one thing I wanted to ask you. You are planning to share this whole experience and the idea of sending students out with other teachers.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the goals we have for the videography component is to communicate the potential and possibility of these types of experiences.
And that's Emily Dombroff, who went up with 5 students.
Correct. So 5 AP Gov students who also work with Ms. Dombroff in the video course, as well as the MHS info course.
Right.
And she was the leader of that group, and they fanned out and covered whatever they needed to cover.
So that's yet to be shown.
There's more coming.
Okay. Any idea when that might be ready?
I don't.
And can we play it on LMC-TV?
I'm sure we can figure out a way
Say
to play
yes.
it.
Say yes. Emily, if you're watching,
Yeah, I can either confirm or deny that.
we'll get to her. We'll get to her, and we look forward to seeing it and sharing it among just the Mamaroneck High School faculty, or
No. We want to push this out nationally. I think it's very important for particularly teachers in the area of civics education, poli-sci, to see that these experiences are very doable. They can be done even with 115 students, and not that it has to be done with 115 students. And I think it's important that the educators see how impactful this is on young people. I mean, I really have never seen something have such an effect on students as both the 2012 trip as well as the 2016 trip. It really does carry forward.
And can you tell us once again, Stephen, where we can see your posts?
Yeah, so medium.com, and it's a publication, so if you search newhamp_2016, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all for coming out tonight and spending some time with us, and we'd love to have you back again.
Absolutely.
This could be a recurring show, politics. I love it. Thank you, folks, for joining us, and
We'll be back in a moment with more community stories and, of course, the answer to the trivia question.
This week in sports, the Mamaroneck ice hockey team scored 8 goals in their season finale win over White Plains. Their most impressive goal of the night included a between-the-legs pass from junior James Torrey in the LMC Varsity Sports Play of the Week.
Has been very good in this one. Another chance to pass there. Ewald gets it, and he will be, looked like could have been taken down. Good defense, and what a pass! Ewald passes it to Arbo, and when it looked like it was broken and a possible tripping, Ewald somehow gets it, and he passes from his knees to Will Arbo. So an assist for Ewald, and a goal, number 2 for Will Arbo.
You're watching The Local Live,
the only news show on Larchmont and Mamaroneck on LMC-TV.
Ralph is a handsome 2-year-old 32-pound heeler terrier mix that arrived at Pet Rescue with his brother, who have since been adopted. He is super friendly and wants nothing more than to be with people all the time. He's amazing on a leash and loves long, leisurely walks finished with a good cuddle. Ralph is good with children but can be dog selective. For more information and to browse other adorable pets, go to www.ny-petrescue.org. And remember, if you'd like to keep us on the air, support our program by checking out our website at www.lmc-tv.org. We really appreciate any contribution. And we're always welcoming new interns and volunteers, so send your emails to thelocallive@lmctv.org and join us. We love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching this episode of The Local Live. The Army Corps of Engineers flooding presentation will be airing in our time slot next week, so make sure to catch us back here on March 3rd. Good night, everyone. I'm Kat Galliano, and I'll see you next time for another episode of The Local Live.
Tell us what you think. In person, over the phone, online. Watch and hear yourself on TV. You tell us, we air it. This is The Local Live.